Hey guys, and welcome back. So in this video, we're going to create our very first script to enable our player character to move around inside of the game world. Okay, so I'm going to select the player character and I'm going to add a new C# script called player. Once that's been created, I'll just double click on it to open it up inside of my text editor. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is create a public float variable called speed. This variable will just dictate how fast the player can move around the game world. So a quick note, the public keyword just means that the variable will show up inside of the Unity inspector so that we can change the value directly from there. And the float keyword just means that this variable can contain decimal numbers. After that, I'm going to create a private variable. So this variable here will not show up inside of the Unity inspector, and the type will just be rigid body 2D, and I'll call it RB, which is short for rigid body. So a rigid body 2D variable will just contain all the physics that is inside of Unity by default. Okay, so we need this variable because to move our player around we'll be using very simple physics, but nothing complicated, don't worry. After that, I will create my void start function that, I remind you, gets called at the very beginning of the game. RB variable equal to get component rigid body 2D. What this line is doing is that we're just setting our RB variable equal to the rigid body 2D component that is attached to our player character. Okay, with that done, I will now create my update function. This one here gets called every single frame of our game. So in other words, very often. Okay, so inside of the update function, I'm going to create a vector2 variable called move input. So a vector2 variable is just the x and y coordinates. We're going to be using this variable to detect what keys the user is pressing. So if he is pressing the top arrow key, then the y coordinates of this variable will be equal to 1. If he is pressing the down key, the y coordinates will be equal to -1, and of course the same for the x coordinates. If he is pressing the left key, it will be equal to -1, and if he is pressing the right key, it will be equal to 1. So I'm going to set it equal to a new vector2. For the x coordinates, I'm going to set it to input.getAxis raw, and it's going to be on the horizontal. And for the y coordinates, it will be equal to input.getAxis raw, and this time vertical. Okay, perfect. Don't forget the semicolon. So once we have got our move input variable, we're going to create on top another private variable, a vector2, and this one here is going to be called move amount. So as its name implies, we're going to use this variable to calculate how much we want to move off. So inside of the update function, I'm going to set the move amount variable equal to the move input variable dot normalized, and we're going to multiply everything with our speed variable. So the dot normalized just makes sure that the player will not move faster when moving diagonally. Okay. So for now, we have just detected our move input and calculated our move amount, but we haven't yet moved our player. To do so, I'm going to create the fixed update function. So this function here gets called every single physics frame. Simply put, any code that is related to physics must go inside of this function. So we're just going to use our RB variable and call the move position function, passing in our current position, so rb.position, and adding onto it the move amount variable, and then we just need to multiply everything with time.fixedDeltaTime to make it frame rate independent. Frame rate independent just means that our player character will be moving at the same speed if you're on your grandma's old computer or your powerful new PC. Okay, so with that done, we can just save our script. Okay, so inside of Unity, the first thing we're going to do is add a new component. I'm going to add the rigid body 2D component that we are referencing inside of our player script. A few things that we have to change: the gravity scale, we have to set it to 0 because we don't want our player character to be affected by gravity. And we're also going to add a freeze rotation on the Z, so that later on in our game, the player will not get moved and turned around by the enemies. Then we just need to select a speed, so I'll just choose something like 30. And if we now press the play button, you'll see that we could indeed move our player around the game world. Awesome. Okay, that marks the end of this video. I'll see you in the next one.